Dead and Gone, but Not Forgotten. Part 1. The Tragic 27 Club. So what is it about the age of 27? And why have so many of rock's most influential and innovative and troubled musicians left this world at the same exact age? Is it a coincidence? A curse? Or just a high price of living too fast and burning too bright? Welcome back to Headbangers History. This is where we dive into the rock and metal's most legendary and heartbreaking stories. In part 1 of our Gone Too Soon series, we explore the infamous 27 Club, the musicians who changed history and left a void that could never be filled. Welcome to Headbangers History, where riffs reign supreme and legends are born. Let's dive into the heart-pounding history of hard rock and heavy metal. Jimi Hendrix died in 1970, the guitar god who redefined music, arguably the greatest guitarist of all time. Jimi Hendrix didn't just play guitar, he reinvented what the instrument could actually do. From his groundbreaking fuzz-drenched tone to his explosive live performances, Hendrix was decades ahead of his time. Some of his biggest impact was his experimental use of feedback. Distortion, the wah-wah pedals, influenced hard rock and heavy metal. His most famous tracks, of course, are Purple Haze, Voodoo Child, Slight Return, and All Along the Watchtower. His cause of death? Drug-related asphyxiation in London in 1970. Had he lived, could Hendrix have played alongside Black Sabbath, Led Zeppelin, or Deep Purple? Let's just imagine the ultimate supergroup. Second person is Janis Joplin, died in 1970. She was the soulful queen of rock. Janis wasn't just a singer. She was a force of nature. With her gritty, emotional voice and untamed stage presence, she seemed to pave the way for female rock and metal vocalists. It was good enough for me. Good enough for me and my Bobby. Her biggest impact, where she broke the mold, proving that women could be raw, they could be aggressive, and lead rock bands. Some of her most famous tracks are Pieces of My Heart, Cry Baby, Me and Bobby McGee. Her cause of death was a heroin overdose in Los Angeles in 1970. But without Janis, would we have gotten Ann Wilson of Heart, Lita Ford, or even Hailstorm's Lizzie Hale? It's hard to tell. Her influence still echoes in today's rock scene. Jim Morrison died in 1971. He's the dark poet of rock, the Lizard King.
Scattered on dawn's highway bleeding, ghosts crowd the young child's fragile eggshell mind.
The shaman of psychedelia, and one of rock's most enigmatic frontmen. Jim Morrison turned music into poetry, into rebellion. It was pure raw emotion. His biggest impact was his dark poetic lyrics and brooding stage presence. People are strange when you're a stranger, faces look ugly, which inspired countless gothic and metal acts. Some of his famous tracks are Riders on the Storm, Light My Fire, Break On Through, numerous others. His cause of death was heart failure, rumored to be an overdose, in Paris in 1971. Without Morrison's influence, would we have seen the rise of an Alice Cooper or the Misfits, or even black metal's eerie atmospheres? And then there's Kurt Cobain. He died in 1994, and he was a grunge icon who changed rock forever. Few musicians reshaped rock overnight like Kurt Cobain. His band Nirvana took the underground grunge scene and just made it into a global phenomenon. Biggest impact? He killed the glam metal era and brought rock back into a raw emotion with simplicity and rebellion. Some of his famous tracks were Smells Like Teen Spirit, Come As You Are, Lithium, many others. His cause of death was a gunshot wound.
Loader with an MTV News special report. The body of Nirvana leader Kurt Cobain was found in a house in Seattle on Friday morning, dead of an apparently self-inflicted shotgun blast to the head. Police found what is said to be a suicide note at the scene, but have not yet divulged its contents. Cobain, who was 27, had reportedly been missing for several days. The Los Angeles Times reported on Wednesday that Nirvana was breaking up and that Cobain was planning to undergo drug rehabilitation. A source close to the band told MTV News earlier this week that while that story
officially
sounded bad,
ruled a suicide in Seattle
was,
in
quote,
1994.
really
Had he lived, would Nirvana have evolved into a heavier and maybe a more experimental band? Kurt could have collaborated with metal acts like Metallica or Soundgarden? We'll never know. And then there's one I'm adding in, and it's Amy Winehouse. She died in 2011, and it's a modern tragedy. While not a metal artist, Amy Winehouse's raw talent and emotional depth transcended her genres. Her tragic downfall mirrored those of Hendrix, Joplin, Morrison, all before her. Her biggest impact, reviving old school soul and blues into a modern era, which influenced countless rock vocalists. Some of her famous tracks were Back to Black, Rehab, You Know I'm No Good. All worthy songs to go listen to. Her cause of death was alcohol poisoning in London in 2011.
We're going to turn now to a major loss in the music world tonight. The gifted singer Amy Winehouse found dead in her London home. She was just 27. And so many people blogging and tweeting throughout the day today about an almost eerie coincidence. So many young music stars lost, and so many lost when they too were 27.
Had Amy survived, would she have become a rock artist? She was on the verge of a heavier blues-infused rock transition, in my opinion. So the big question here is this coincidence or is it a curse? So many of rock's most influential figures died at 27. So I need to know, was it fate, the cost of fame, substance abuse, and mental health struggles left unchecked? What do you think? Is the 27 Club real or just tragically a coincidence? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. So next up in part 2 of the series is Metal's Fallen Titans, the ones who redefined heavy. We've covered the 27 Club, but what about the metal legends who left us way too soon? In part 2, we'll dive into the stories of Bon Scott, Randy Rhoads, Cliff Burton, Dimebag Darrell, and Paul Gray. The ones who made metal heavier, only to be taken way too soon. So who do you think was the most influential member of the 27 Club? Put it in the comments. Let's talk. Let's chatter. This is Headbangers History. I'll be back tomorrow with part 2.